coding on empty. Why burnout hits developers harder than you think. Burnout in software engineering isn't just about being tired. It's a full system crash that happens when passion turns into overwork, when ambition becomes a grind, and when just one more feature becomes your entire life. Nearly 3/4 of developers have hit this wall. This article breaks down why it happens, how to spot it, and what you can do to keep your love for coding alive without torturing yourself in the process. Introduction. Picture this: you're staring at your screen at 2 a.m., debugging code you wrote 6 hours ago when you were already exhausted. The bug makes no sense, nothing makes sense anymore. You used to love this. Now you're just running on fumes and spite. That's burnout. And if you've never experienced it, congrats, you're in the minority. About 73 of developers have been there. Some surveys push that number to 83. That's not a bug in the data, that's a feature of how we work in this industry. Burnout isn't just feeling tired after a long week. It's what the World Health Organization calls an occupational phenomenon from chronic, unmanaged work stress. Herbert Freudenberger, who named this thing back in 1974, described it as losing your drive when your dedication stops producing results. You pour everything into your work and end up with an empty tank and nothing to show for it. So how does an industry full of people who genuinely love what they do end up with burnout rates that would make a coal miner wince? Let's dig in. When loving code becomes the problem. Most of us got into this field because we actually enjoy it. Writing code that solves problems, building things from scratch. That moment when everything finally compiles and works, that's the good stuff. The problem is when that passion gets weaponized against you. There is this toxic myth in tech that if you truly love coding, you should be doing it all the time. Nights, weekends, holidays. You should have side projects. You should be contributing to open source. You should live and breathe code 247. After all, if you love your job, you never work a day in your life, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. What actually happens is you turn your passion into an endless grind. You start working 12-hour days, then 14, then you lose track because who's counting anymore? You tell yourself it's fine because you love it. But here is the thing, your brain doesn't care how much you love something when you're running it into the ground. Research backs this up. After about 50 hours of work in a week, your output nosedives. One study found that someone grinding 70 hours a week produced exactly the same amount as someone working 55 hours. Those extra 15 hours, wasted. You're just typing more and accomplishing less. Programming is cognitively intense. After a certain point, you're not solving problems anymore, you're creating new ones. Ever spent an hour at midnight debugging code you broke because you were too fried to think straight? That's what happens when passion becomes compulsion. The fix is to stop loving what you do. It's to remember that dedication doesn't mean self-destruction. Set real limits on your work hours. Stick to them. Your code will be better for it. Your brain definitely will be. The career ladder that never ends. Tech loves a good grind. Junior to senior to staff to principal to CTO. Climb faster, climb harder. The pressure to level up is relentless, and it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that just a bit more work will get you there. So you volunteer for extra projects. You stay late. You say yes to impossible timelines. You treat your career like it's an RPG where you just need to grind more XP to unlock the next level. But here is the reality: not everyone gets promoted, no matter how hard they work. In ultra-competitive environments, the promotion you're killing yourself for might never come. And when it doesn't, that hits hard. You've been sprinting on a treadmill and suddenly you realize you haven't moved an inch. That's when burnout really takes hold. You start asking yourself what you're doing wrong, why you're still stuck, why the sacrifice isn't paying off. Freudenberger's definition comes to life here: you lose enthusiasm when your dedication doesn't yield results. One day you're motivated, the next you're dragging yourself to stand up thinking, I can't do this anymore. And if you do get promoted, congrats, now you have more responsibilities. Senior devs don't just code, they review code, mentor juniors, handle project management, debug production issues at 3 a.m. and somehow become experts in everything from security to cloud spend. Mid-career burnout is real because the ladder stops being a ladder and starts being one of those impossible Azure staircases. The solution isn't to stop being ambitious, it's to reframe what success looks like. Not every win comes with a new title or a raise. Sometimes the real progress is learning something hard, shipping something meaningful, or just getting better at what you do. Treat your career like a marathon, not a sprint. Sustainable growth beats meteoric rises followed by flameouts. If you miss a promotion, give yourself space to recover instead of doubling down and grinding harder out of spite. Burnout feeds on the feeling of running in place. Acknowledge that growth happens even without the shiny new title, and you'll be a lot more resilient. The impossible task of knowing everything. In software, the learning never stops. New languages, new frameworks, new tools, new paradigms. Every other month, there is something else you need to know. For a lot of us, that's exciting. We got into this field because we love figuring out how things work, but at some point, the excitement turns into pressure. Pressure to learn everything. And that's not just hard, it's impossible. The tech world moves fast. Trying to keep up with every trend is like trying to drink from a fire hose while someone keeps cranking up the pressure. As one researcher put it, "There's always something new to learn, which means there is always something you don't know how to do." That's a recipe for feeling perpetually inadequate. So what do developers do? They spend their evenings and weekends learning that hot new JavaScript framework, contributing to open source, building side projects. Basically, they work after work. And if you are not doing that, well, you must be falling behind. Social media makes this worse. You see people constantly posting about their side projects, their latest blog post, their mastery of some new tool. It feels like everyone is grinding 247 except you. That nagging voice starts telling you that you are not doing enough, that you'll become obsolete if you dare to, I don't know, watch a movie. One engineer put it bluntly, the high-speed advancement in technology, new tools, frameworks and new versions popping up every 6 months is just too much for a human brain to cope with. And now with AI in the mix, there is this added fear of, will AI replace me if I don't master it immediately? The pressure has never been higher. And when learning itself becomes a source of stress instead of joy, burnout is right around the corner. Here's the truth: you will never know everything. Ever. And that's fine. A good engineer is someone who knows all the answers. It's someone who knows how to find answers and learns in a sustainable way. Focus on what matters to you and what's relevant to your work. You don't need to master every new framework the day it drops. You don't need to have a side project running at all times. Give yourself permission to not have homework every night after your day job. Learning should be a joy, not a second job. Keep it that way. The LeetCode grind. If you've ever interviewed for a tech job, you know the drill. Spend weeks grinding LeetCode, memorize algorithm patterns, practice system design until you dream in distributed systems. Treat interview prep like a part-time job on top of your actual job. It's exhausting. Solving algorithm puzzles for hours after a full workday is brutal. You start having nightmares about binary trees. Everything in life becomes a potential dynamic programming problem. The worst part? The pressure is intense because every coding quiz could make or break your dream job. And if you're already burned out at your current job, piling interview prep on top is like throwing gasoline on a fire. Even people who aren't burned out yet can burn themselves out during prep. The competitive nature of these interviews makes you feel guilty for every evening you don't spend solving problems. That's dangerous. The fix is to pace yourself. Treat it like marathon training, not a sprint. You wouldn't run 20 miles every day without rest. Don't code for 5 hours every night without breaks either. Set a realistic schedule, maybe an hour a day, maybe a few longer sessions per week. Make sure you're still sleeping, exercising, and doing things you enjoy. Quality beats quantity. A fresh mind will crush more problems in 1 focused hour than a fried mind will in 4. And if you have an off day, that's fine. The goal is gradual improvement, not perfection. Manage your prep smartly and you'll walk into interviews sharp instead of burned out. Imposter syndrome. The voice that never shuts up. Almost every developer has felt it at some point. That nagging feeling that you're a fraud, that you don't really belong, that you're 1 mistake away from being exposed as someone who's been faking it the whole time. That's imposter syndrome, and it's incredibly common in this field. You look around and assume everyone else is more capable, that you're the only one Googling basic stuff, that your success is just luck. Here's the thing, imposter syndrome and burnout are best friends. When you constantly doubt your abilities, you overcompensate. You work longer hours, you take on extra tasks, you live in fear of making mistakes. That creates a ton of stress and anxiety. Over time, it's exhausting. You're running with a mental weight on your shoulders that never goes away. You set an ever-rising bar for yourself. Every achievement feels like a fluke, so you push yourself even harder next time to avoid being found out. Research confirms this. Imposter syndrome drives high stress and anxiety, which leads directly to burnout. In 1 study, about 64 of employees reported fatigue and burnout, with imposter feelings as a major factor. People who feel not enough run themselves into the ground trying to become enough. The irony? These are often perfectly capable developers. Their brains just refuse to believe it. Fighting imposter syndrome isn't easy, but it's crucial. First, know you're not alone. Even developers you admire deal with self-doubt. Talking about it helps. Remind yourself of objective evidence. That project you shipped, the positive feedback you got. Keep receipts for your brain to counter the irrational thoughts. And most importantly, don't tie your entire self-worth to being a perfect coder. You are more than your job. Your value is determined by how flawlessly you implement an algorithm on the first try. By keeping imposter syndrome in check, you remove 1 big driver of burnout, that relentless internal pressure to prove yourself. You are worthy. Believe it. Work-life balance is non-negotiable. If there's one thing that should be hammered into every developer's head, it's this: work-life balance is not optional. Software development can easily consume your entire life if you let it. There's always another bug, always another feature. But neglecting everything outside of code is a guaranteed path to burnout. We're not code-producing robots. We need rest, variety, social connection, hobbies. When work eats up all your time and energy, your mental and physical health collapse. Burnout happens when work-life balance gets completely destroyed. Think of it like recovery time after a hard workout. You wouldn't train 247 without rest, because your muscles would break down. Your mind works the same way. If you fill all your time with work, there's no room for recovery. Remote work makes this worse. Your office follows you home. Your laptop beckons at 10 p.m. Next thing you know, you're merging a PR at midnight from bed. If that becomes routine, burnout is inevitable. The nature of coding makes it especially hard to switch off. You stop typing, but your brain is still churning on that algorithm or that bug. That's why protecting non-work time is vital. Give your brain permission to disconnect. Physical health matters too. Sleep deprivation, junk food, no exercise. All of that drains your energy and makes you more susceptible to stress. Chronic work stress can cause real physical symptoms: headaches, muscle tension, constant fatigue. On the flip side, taking care of your body builds resilience. Regular exercise releases endorphins. Good sleep repairs your brain. These aren't luxuries, they're basic maintenance. A sustainable career requires treating work and life as two important halves. When you're at work, focus. When you're off, really be off. Use your vacation days, spend time with people, pursue hobbies that don't involve a screen. Not only will this keep you healthier, it'll actually improve your work. A well-rested, well-rounded person brings more creativity and enthusiasm to the job. Work is part of life, not the entirety of it. Keep that perspective. The code will still be there tomorrow. Your health and relationships won't wait. How to actually prevent burnout. Burnout isn't inevitable. With the right strategies, you can have a thriving career without destroying yourself. That's what actually works. Set real boundaries. Learn to say no. Decide you won't check email after 7 p.m. Don't work weekends unless it's truly an emergency. This isn't being lazy. It's preserving your long-term productivity. Make it routine. Have an end-of-day ritual. When you shut down your laptop, work mode is off. Communicate your limits to your team. Most reasonable workplaces will respect it. Use your vacation days. Actually unplug. The world will survive without you for a week. And remember, working endless hours doesn't mean endless productivity. By capping your hours to something reasonable, you likely increase quality and consistency. Setting boundaries is like putting up guardrails so you don't drive yourself off a cliff. Focus on deep work. Our days are full of shallow work. Emails, Slack pings, meetings about meetings. That's draining and leaves you feeling like you accomplished nothing. To combat burnout, carve out time for deep work. Focused, meaningful engagement with challenging tasks. That's the satisfying part of coding. That's why you got into this. Block time on your calendar for focused work. Turn off notifications. Treat it like an important meeting with yourself. Cluster shallow tasks into designated times so they don't constantly interrupt you. Minimize multitasking. When you're in deep work mode, single task with intensity, then take a break. By the end of the day, you'll see tangible progress. That sense of achievement protects you from burnout. It reinforces that your work matters and is moving forward. Learn strategically. Trying to learn everything is impossible and silly. Embrace strategic learning. Be intentional about what you learn and why. Focus on areas that give you the most value. If you're a front-end dev, master front-end tools. You don't need to chase every trend in every domain. Make a learning roadmap. Pick one topic at a time, maybe one per quarter. This way you actually enjoy learning without feeling like you're drowning. Incorporate learning during work hours if possible. Many employers offer training time. And remember, learning is a lifelong marathon. Find a sustainable pace. By focusing on what's relevant and interesting, you keep learning fun and manageable. You prevent the fatigue of feeling buried under a knowledge avalanche. Take care of yourself. Mental health practices like mindfulness, therapy, or journaling help manage stress before it spirals. If you notice burnout signs, irritability, exhaustion, apathy, talk to someone, a friend, mentor, or therapist. Asking for support isn't weakness, it's practical. On the physical side, treat your body right. Regular exercise clears your head. Even a walk during lunch can reset your mood. Prioritize sleep. Watch the caffeine. Take breaks throughout your day. 5 minutes every hour to stretch or grab water maintains focus and prevents end-of-day zombie mode. Nurture interests outside tech. Sports, music, cooking, whatever brings you joy. These act as pressure release valves. They remind you that no matter how work went, there are other fulfilling things in your life. When you cultivate a balanced, healthy lifestyle, you build resilience. Even when work gets intense, you have the stamina to ride it out without falling apart. Conclusion: burnout in software engineering is real, common and brutal, but it's not inevitable. You can defend against it by setting boundaries, maintaining work-life balance, working smarter instead of just harder, and taking care of your mind and body. Your goal isn't to sprint at maximum speed until you collapse. It's to find a sustainable pace that lets you keep coding, keep learning, and keep loving what you do for years to come. When you feel burnout creeping in, treat it like a critical bug. Investigate the cause, address it. Your well-being is the most important project you'll ever work on. A career is a marathon, not a sprint. You are allowed to slow down and catch your breath. You cross the finish line in your own time, with energy to spare. Now close your laptop, go outside, and remember why you loved this in the first place.